If your company imports goods into the US, listen up. There is a powerful but kinda secret strategy that could be saving you literally millions of dollars. It's called the first sale rule. And today, we're gonna pull back the curtain and show you exactly what it is, how it works, and how you can get started. Okay, let's get into it.
All right, here's our game plan. We'll start by uncovering a hidden cost you might be paying without even realizing it. Then we'll define what first sale actually is. We'll cover the 3 golden rules you absolutely have to follow, and then give you a playbook to get things rolling. Of course, we have to talk about the risks versus the rewards, and finally, we'll tackle that million-dollar question. If this is so great, why isn't everybody doing it?
So let's cut right to the chase. A lot of companies, and I mean a lot, especially if you're in an industry like apparel or footwear that gets hit with high duties, are paying way more in customs duties than they legally have to. It all comes down to a single detail: how the value of your goods is declared. So I'll just ask you directly, are your imports costing you too much? For a surprising number of businesses out there, the answer is a definite yes. And to understand why, we've got to look at how a typical supply chain, with all its different layers, actually functions. Okay, let's paint a picture. This is a super common setup for apparel. You get your raw materials, and they're sent to a factory, let's say in Mexico. That factory makes the finished clothes and sells them to a middleman. Then, your company in the US buys those exact same clothes from that middleman. Now here's the key part. Most companies calculate their customs duty based on the price they paid the middleman in step 4. But what if that's not the price you have to use? And that question brings us to the solution: the first sale for exportation rule. This is a 100% legal, above-board customs valuation method that lets you use an earlier and, critically, a lower-priced sale from your supply chain to calculate duties. This is the key that can unlock some serious savings. So here's the difference in a nutshell. Normally, you pay duty on that higher price, the one your company paid the middleman. But with the first sale rule, you get to declare the value based on the lower price, the one the middleman paid the factory. It's simple, right? A lower price means a lower duty bill. In theory, it's that easy. But the devil, as they say, is in the details. Naturally, you can't just pick the lower price and call it a day. U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, has some very strict, non-negotiable rules. This isn't some secret loophole. It's a formal regulation, and you have to prove you've earned the right to use it.
Everything, and I mean everything, hinges on this one idea. The first sale, the one between the factory and the middleman, has to be what CBP calls a bona fide sale. So what does that mean? It means it has to be a real, legitimate business deal. Ownership has to actually change hands. Risk has to be transferred. It can't just be some paper transaction cooked up to dodge duties.
So it all boils down to these 3 golden rules. First, you need that bona fide arm's-length sale. That means the price between the factory and the middleman is fair market value, not some sweetheart deal. Second, you have to prove that from the very moment of that first sale, the goods were always intended to come to the U.S. And third, and this is huge, the burden of proof is completely 100% on you, the importer. And get this, the United States is the only country in the world that allows this valuation method. Pretty wild, huh?
Okay, so theory is great, but how do you actually do this? It can feel a little overwhelming, I know, but if you have a clear plan, it's totally manageable. So here's a playbook, a checklist to get you started on the right foot. Think of this 10-point checklist as your roadmap. You've got to start by mapping out your entire supply chain to even find these opportunities. But the most critical steps, honestly, are getting your middleman and factory to cooperate. You need their invoices. And please hear me on this, engaging an expert. Do not try to do this alone. It is way too risky. From there, it's about building a bulletproof documentation process, maybe running a small pilot program first, and making sure you are always exercising what CBP calls reasonable care. And now we've got to talk about the stakes. There's a reason this all requires so much diligence. Because while the rewards are massive, the penalties for messing this up are, well, they're severe. This is not a program you just casually jump into. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Listen to how one of the top trade law firms in the country describes it. They don't pull any punches. They call the penalties for getting this wrong absolutely outrageous. They mean it. So let's see what that looks like in numbers.
So if CBP audits you and finds your program wasn't compliant, the penalties can be as high as 800% of the duties you avoided. 8 times the money customs lost. A mistake here isn't just a slap on the wrist. It could be a catastrophic financial blow. This is exactly why having an expert and a rock-solid process isn't just a nice-to-have, it's essential.
But let's flip the coin. Why would anyone even consider taking on that kind of risk? Well, because of this. For an importer doing, say, $10 million in business with a 25% tariff rate, a well-run first-sale program could mean $500,000 in savings every single year. For bigger importers, that number just gets bigger. Suddenly, that risk starts to look a whole lot more manageable. Right about now, I'm sure this is the question bouncing around in your head. If this is legal, if CBP accepts it, and if it can save companies millions, why on earth isn't every single importer with a middleman using it? It's a fantastic question, and the answer is really, really interesting. So check this out. According to the U.S. International Trade Commission, only about 2.4% of the total value of all goods imported into the U.S. uses the first sale rule. Just think about that. For all its power, especially in industries like apparel, almost nobody is using it. So what gives? Why the huge gap? Well, it really boils down to these 4 things. A lot of importers just plain don't know this rule exists. For others, their supply chains are a black box. But the biggest roadblock is usually vendor confidentiality. Think about it. Your middleman might not be too thrilled about showing you, their customer, exactly what they paid for the goods and how much profit they're making. And finally, that documentation burden can feel pretty scary. But here's the good news. Every single one of these challenges can be overcome. So we'll leave you with this final thought. The first sale rule is proof that hidden deep inside the complicated world of global trade, there are some incredible opportunities just waiting for people willing to do the homework. So the real question is, are you leaving that money on the table? Is there a $1 million question hiding somewhere in your supply chain just waiting for you to ask?